FCD, Freedom from Chemical Dependency, which is part of Betty Ford Hazelden. And when I came to my previous school, he was the newly assigned prevention specialist that we got my first year. And at my school, my previous school, we would do a soft entry into school. The first week was not classes, it was all different other programming, just to kind of ease the kids into it. And we would do all kinds of things. I mean, yoga sessions with breath work to give them some tools to deal with stress management, introduction to different courses, kinds of like the tools to be successful. We would take them bowling, we would do fun outings. So at the end of the first week every year, I would survey the kids to get a sense of, well, what worked first week and what didn't. And hands down, every year, consistently, it was his session was the top session. I mean, I'm taking them on fun stuff, and they're like, no, Rodney, he's the man. This was the thing. This is the best. So it's why I kept bringing them back every year. So when I came here and we had the opportunity, things just happened to work out right. I said to Dr. Diener, I was like, we got to bring my guy in. He's the man. We'll bring him in, and it's going to be great. So sure enough, he came here today, and he's worked with grades 6 through 11. And all day long, I've had kids come up to me, kids go to Dr. Diener, kids who normally wouldn't voice their opinions about stuff like this, come up and say, oh my gosh, he was awesome. I had one kid tell me today, we need to hire him to come and teach personal safety. So I built him up, you're gonna have to do a really good job. But as you can tell, I'm really excited about him because I've worked with him for so long, and he really is wonderful. So I'm gonna shut up and let him take over. Rodney Poole.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
This is all recorded.
Okay, good.
I'll make sure you have a copy.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you all so much for coming. And hello, everyone online. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Rodney Poole, and I am a prevention specialist, and I have had the absolute luxury of traveling the world talking to young people about the dangers of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. In my 14 years of doing this work, I've been to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, depending upon where you're from, Singapore, Thailand, Nairobi, Hanoi in Vietnam, Mumbai, New Delhi, and all over the U.S. And I speak about 14 languages. Just joking. All the schools I work at are English-speaking schools, and so I've had the absolute pleasure of seeing some amazing places and working with some amazing people. Thank you so much to Augusta Prep for bringing me in this week. Today, I said I'll take just one day. If I can't come for a week, I'll come for a day because I love doing this work so much. And we're in a situation now, ladies and gentlemen, where our young people are at major risk. There are companies that are targeting your kids. They want them to be hooked on electronic cigarettes specifically. And it's very clear. Juul just paid $400 million to a number of states, similar to the master settlement agreement where the big tobacco paid a bunch of states to not be able to be sued anymore because of their marketing practices. They were targeting kids specifically. They were putting ads on Nickelodeon. And
I
Cartoon
actually just
Network.
watched, there was a documentary on American Greed about this particular one. It was unbelievable how much money they made. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Feel free to chime in. It's just we're a small group, so I'm here for you. I want to be able to answer your questions. I can blather on for an hour or so, but I want to be able to answer what questions you all brought with you all tonight. So feel free to just jump in. I love when I have my medical staff, my medical community show up because y'all can back me up on some of the things that I talk about. But so I want to encourage you all to realize, ladies and gentlemen, your kids are listening to you. They're listening, but they're really watching and paying attention. I had an 8th grader, not here, ask me, what do I do if I'm out with friends and their parents and both parents are drinking? Because we're talking about drinking and driving. How do I get home? An 8th grader asked that question. They're really watching and paying attention. So I really want to encourage you all to not only keep up the good work, because I'll be honest with you, the students here today were nothing but a pleasure. Even the 6th graders, and I had a whole group of 6th graders by myself, and they were a pleasure to work with. Well behaved, very inquisitive, a lot of questions. So, but they want to know. that whole idea about just say no is not, it didn't really work. It didn't really work. Kids need to know, why should I say no? Give me some reasons why. What is so bad about marijuana if it's being legalized as medication? And I got a number of questions about that as well. I kind of had presentations all set up for my students today, but we had so many questions, we kind of had to divert, and I had to and come back to, but I wanted to make sure I was answering their questions. I put together a PowerPoint that will highlight some specifics. We'll talk about some things that parents, I want to encourage you all to pay attention to. I want to highlight some suggestions for working with your kids, for talking to them about alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, and I got a couple of really good videos as well. Okay, so that's me. Like I said, I've been all over the place. I love doing this work. I never would have imagined me ever being a prevention specialist. Actually, I'm in my 31st year of recovery, and so that means 31 years of no alcohol, no tobacco, no drugs. But I remember as a high school student making some very unhealthy decisions, and I regret it to this very day, and I share that with students. I tell them, you are in a position right now that you're building your foundation possibly for the rest of your life. So make healthy decisions, because there are so many forces that are against you right now when it comes to, people trying to get your money, people trying to get your attention, and the whole social media piece. It's like there's a barrage of negative information coming at them, and I try to bring the factual information. So I love what I do, but prevention is much more than just a presentation. Prevention is a climate. What is the climate of our school? What is the climate of our home? What are the rules and what are the consequences? What are the discussions at home about alcohol, tobacco, other drugs? Is alcohol served at every function that the adults in my life attend? I've gone to schools during fundraisers, and I might mess it up here for some schools, but I've gone to schools for a fundraiser, and after the fundraiser, I go to the office, and there's like unused cases of wine in the corner, and where students can see it. And I remember I asked the secretary, I was like, is that wine? And later on that day, it was gone. They kind of figured out, the drug guy is asking about the wine over the corner. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. So, but young people are paying attention because they're getting conflicting stories. They see commercials about alcohol or other drugs, and I believe, if not mistaken, weed's legal here in Georgia?
No.
I'm seeing, I saw some signs for dispensaries.
There are medicals,
Yeah. So, that's usually, historically, from what I've seen, marijuana gets the medical foot in first, and then if the sky didn't fall down, the recreational foot follows behind, because there's a ton of money to be made from marijuana. Do a little research on what's going on out in Colorado. There are a number of parts of Colorado that aren't very happy with the current legalization of marijuana. It's creating a lot of, they thought it would cause the black market to go away, but it hasn't. It's actually helped them. They're undercutting because it's very expensive to get into the marijuana business. It's very expensive. And so they have a lot of taxes to pay and so on and so forth. So what's happening is the black market is thriving in Colorado. And so there's a lot of misinformation about alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. So we want to make sure that we're providing information that is factual and research-based. So I'm going to encourage your parents to educate yourselves. Yeah, so you can have those effective conversations. Now, today I had the pleasure of working grades 6 through 11, and with the 6th graders, we didn't really get into drugs, but they had some questions. The 6th graders had questions about legalization of marijuana. They had questions about alcohol. They really had questions about loved ones in their lives who may be smoking cigarettes or maybe vaping, secondhand smoke. Some of them have lost loved ones due to complications from smoking. I've had questions amongst my 10th graders asked about, how do I help a friend who I'm concerned about? Very caring kids. This generation, they said this generation is one of the generations that is most likely to volunteer to help other people, most inclusive of other people's lifestyles. And so it's just a bunch of great kids. I had the pleasure of talking with, I did vaping with pretty much everyone grades 7 through 11. I want to make sure we were talking about the electronic cigarettes and the risk. If nothing else, we covered electronic cigarettes. So I covered that, but there's still more information that's out there. I did my best to kind of give them a foundation. So that'd be an assignment for you all to learn more about electronic cigarettes with your kid. Yeah, now's the perfect time because it's fresh in their minds. They've talked about it. Tell them Mr. Poole said for me to come home and for us to talk about electronic cigarettes. So sit down and let's do some research. But let's look at alcohol real quick. I hear this over and over again. Why do kids drink? Curiosity. It's they see adults drinking it, and adults they respect, and so they figure. And a lot of kids feel, well, I guess I'm supposed to drink. Especially if now alcohol, if it's consumed at your house and it's consumed in a way that is excessive all the time for stress relief, that sends a very strong message, opposed to if it's consumed every once in a while in moderate levels. That sends another very strong message as well. So curiosity, the idea that everyone's doing it, we dispelled that myth today, and I'll show you the fact that not everyone's drinking, not everyone's vaping. Not everyone's smoking marijuana. Even in high school, even in college, it's seldom everyone. But if you look at the news or you listen to some of the songs that are out there, it appears that everyone's doing it. So we want to continue to dispel that myth. Not really knowing what it's going to do to you as well as unknown expectations. So addiction is the repetitive, compulsive use of a substance despite negative consequences. So it's more than just a habit. There's also usually some negative consequences associated with use. But if a person continues to use, addiction is classified as a disease. It's a disease. And there are risk factors for addiction. Addiction does run in families. It runs in families. And so it's definitely an opportunity for discussion. Don't just sweep it under the rug. That's just Uncle Ted. He just behaves that way when he drinks. Let's have a discussion about, okay, what's going on? Why does it appear, hopefully no one has an Uncle Ted here, but let's talk about why Uncle Ted struggles when he starts to drinking. Why is it that he behaves the way he does? Why does he always appear intoxicated? Because that young person who may have a genetic predisposition will experience alcohol differently if they start drinking. But this is the one risk factor we can negate is age of first use. How? By that kid not drinking. Doesn't happen with heart disease, diabetes, any other disease, but addiction. So at what age a person begins using, that's a big one. We talked about that today as well. The fact that their brains are still developing, and we want to encourage them to hold off on alcohol and other drugs. Surroundings can kind of go either way. I was at a school in Texas, and I finished a presentation with some seniors. And this one young lady comes up to me and she said, Mr. Poole, thanks so much for coming. We really got a lot out of it. And she kind of started tearing up. And I said, what's wrong, are you okay? She said, I will never touch alcohol. She said, both of my parents are alcoholics. I leave for school in the morning, my mom's drinking already. I get home in the afternoon, they're both passed out. They've been drinking all day. Now for her surroundings were a deterrent because of the type of drinking that the way that she saw the adults drinking. But for others, that type of drinking might make that type of drinking seem normal. Like that's how you're supposed to do it. How many of us have heard, you're not a man unless you can hold your liquor? That idea. No, all that means is your body is very efficient at processing large amounts of alcohol. That doesn't mean you're less of a man if you don't have a lot of that enzyme in your system. That just means your body processes alcohol differently. Lack of connection. I heard this and I'm a firm believer. It makes sense. It really makes sense. The opposite of addiction is not really sobriety. It's connection. It's connection. Yeah. I love my life today. Now I struggle. I got some issues going on. Got some stuff going on, as most people do. Been married for a number of years now, and my wife had some health issues, but she's getting better now. But I noticed something though. When I got married, after I got married, all my suits started shrinking. Anyone else experience that? The dry cleaner shrinking your clothes? No, my wife's amazing. But once I stopped using, things got much better, and I'm very connected these days. I'm connected to career, connected to family, and really close friends, connected to myself as well. So we want to encourage young people to stay connected to things that they love doing. Unmanaged stress. Our kids are stressed these days. Anyone else stressed? What's going on? I mean, there's a bunch of stuff going on. Especially if you're trying to be successful in anything, there's going to be some stress. I think our natural state is rest. So if you're trying to do anything, there's gonna be some stress involved. So encourage young people to find healthy ways of dealing with stress. Alcohol doesn't relieve stress, it creates stress. The body has to process alcohol, so that creates stress. Okay.
Rodney, quick
Yes,
question. Is there evidence since the pandemic began of more vulnerability, more usage, more struggle with substances?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How's that being seen?
We're seeing in mental health issues with young people specifically, increases in depression, anxiety issues, self-harm I'm hearing. Young people really struggled during the pandemic. Adults did as well, but we're talking about, as adults, hopefully we've learned some coping mechanisms over a period of time, but teenagers, their whole lives were disrupted. Some of them were they were at home all the time. Social media became one of their best friends. Like, they're just constant social media. And by the way, social media is designed to be addictive. It's designed to be addictive. The same people who work in Vegas, they're called attention engineers, work for these social media sites. So just like with slot machines that keep you playing, they want to keep you scrolling. So that's another assignment, ladies and gentlemen. I want to encourage you to learn more about social media. And I got some suggestions for how to treat social media and your kids. There's some really good suggestions. So let me take a look at this video here. This highlights addiction and what happens.
It's important to understand that everyone in the world has addictions, or rather natural addictions, to things that are good, like food, water, and sleep. These natural addictions are important for our health and survival, and without them, we would not hunger or crave the things we need to survive. Now, we aren't exactly born with these natural addictions. Our body creates them. Let's look at an example. When you bite into an apple, your brain says, yum. Your brain recognizes that this apple is good for you. It has nutrition, vitamins, and gives your body the energy it needs to survive. Whenever the brain recognizes something that's good, it releases a chemical called dopamine. Dopamine causes you to experience pleasure. It's what makes you feel good, like when biting into an apple. The brain releases this dopamine in order to teach the body that this is healthy and good for your survival, and that it should remember to do it again. Now, there are other things we do that can release the pleasurable dopamine, like playing video games, exercising, or reading a good book. However, the amount of dopamine released during these activities is less than what's released when we eat food. The brain does this so it can recognize which is more important. So if you go 2 days without reading a book, or 2 days without eating food, your body is going to crave the food over the book. As such, your brain creates what's called a hierarchy of survival, which ranks how important each of these things is to your survival. Now, there are some things that will not cause the release of dopamine, like eating soap or punching yourself in the face. The brain knows that these things are not good, and therefore does not release the pleasurable dopamine because your brain does not want you to do it again. Now, let's look at alcohol, marijuana, tobacco, and other drugs. These are all classified carcinogens, proven to cause cancer and other fatal diseases. Now, your brain should recognize that these things are harmful to your body. However, these substances have special chemical characteristics that fool the brain into releasing dopamine, oftentimes in much greater amounts than the body has ever experienced before. Because of this, the body is fooled into thinking that these things are good and important, sometimes even more important than food, water, or sleep, and consequently hijacks the #1 spot in your survival hierarchy. So now, if you go 2 days without eating or 2 days without drinking alcohol, your body will actually crave the alcohol over the food. This is an extreme case of addiction, where the person addicted believes that they will die if they don't get it. The severity of the addiction depends on where the alcohol or drug lies within your hierarchy of survival, and can increase even with casual use. Research shows that people under the age of 21 are at the highest risk of having their survival hierarchy hijacked. Why? Because their brains are still growing and developing, and are hypersensitive to false shocks of dopamine caused by these harmful substances. By 21, the brain is more fully developed and mature, and the survival hierarchy becomes more permanent and less susceptible to getting hijacked. The flip side is that once you are 21, it becomes very difficult to remove these harmful substances from your survival hierarchy. Studies show that 9 out of 10 people who currently struggle with addiction started drinking, smoking, or using before the age of 21. Understanding addiction as a preventable disease can help save millions of lives. The decision to wait until 21 could mean the difference between a life enslaved by addiction or a life full of success and accomplishment. Want to learn?
So they kept saying 21, and I got that question today from a student. One kid said, so that means it's okay to smoke weed after 21. Like, well, not exactly. But if you were, because legally, you can smoke marijuana at age 21 in most states here in our country that have legalized marijuana, but it doesn't mean it's a good idea. It doesn't mean it's a healthy idea. Compared to smoking marijuana as a 14, 15, 16-year-old, I think they got the idea that it's beneficial to wait. I wish I had waited, I'll be honest with you. I really do. I share that with students that, 4 out of 5 of the people that I used to use drugs with have all passed away. 4 out of 5 of them. I shouldn't be here. I'm glad I am. But I live with regret every single day. Wasted 4 years of high school. Wasted it. Now, after getting clean, after about 5 years, I decided to go to college full-time, and I do have a degree in psychology. But time is the one thing we can't get back. And so I encourage students every single day, do your best. Do your best. Set some goals and work toward achieving them. Get some help if you need it. There's nothing wrong with reaching out for help, for support. Stay connected to healthy friends and realize the difference. With the 6th graders, we talked about that today, the difference between healthy behavior and unhealthy behavior. Healthy friends, healthy relationships, and unhealthy relationships. I encourage them to reach out to adults, not just their friends, but reach out to adults when they need support. So, like the video talked about, their brains are still developing. And when a young person starts consuming substances, they may affect how the brain develops. Now, this is a pretty young looking crowd. Y'all probably don't remember, probably never drank in high school, but when I was in high school and drank, we never had a glass of wine, ate cheese and crackers, and discussed politics. That was not the way we drank. Our drinking was chug, chug. It was one-upsmanship. Who can drink the most, the fastest, and you better keep up, otherwise we're going to call you names. That's how young people drink to this very day, when they get together and drink. And for a developing brain, that type of drinking can be catastrophic when we talk about development. This is kind of a picture I took. I actually saw a picture over in India, other countries actually, not just India. The codes are much different when it comes to electrical wiring. But that kind of highlights what a little kid's brain is like. There's all sorts of things happening. There's synaptic pruning, there's myelination, the brain is, old connections are falling away that they don't need, new connections are forming. And as they get older, they start to figure some things out. They start to formulate some connections that work for them. I used this example earlier, like a kid will realize, wait a minute, if I start my homework as soon as I get home, I'm kind of ahead of the game after dinner when I have to go back and do some more homework and I'm not as tired. And I'm 3/4 of the way done. And then I got more free time. If I volunteer to cut the grass, usually that works out pretty well. If I volunteer to take out the trash, opposed to having to be told 4 times, that usually works out pretty well. They start to figure out some things. They start to formulate some neurological pathways in their brain that work for them. And the goal is to get them to this point here. That's the goal. Y'all see how I did that, how I used the wiring there? Yeah, we're trying to get them to this point here, where they're firing on all cylinders, making healthy decisions, and becoming successful. So that just shows that the alcohol and other drugs just get in the way of natural, healthy brain development. Okay, so for a young person that starts consuming, now I try not to put a whole lot of words on a screen, but I thought this was a very comprehensive list of some of the consequences of a young person consuming alcohol or other drugs. Just a bunch of health issues, academic issues, emotional issues, developmental issues, issues with sports, goal setting, possible risk of mental health issues, depression, anxiety. There are just a number of issues for a teenager consuming alcohol and other drugs. So we really want to help them delay use if at all possible. No matter how we do it, I've heard people, parents make all sorts of suggestions of how they keep their kids from using alcohol. Some I've heard offer them money. Some have suggested buying a car once they turn a certain age, if they just don't drink or don't use drugs. I've heard drug testing. I've heard that happening. Yeah, I've heard parents, you can buy them at CVS, you can buy the drug tests. And one mom said, well, I've never had to use it, but just by my daughter knowing I have it, sends a message. Yeah, yeah. So what happens in the brain when a person uses alcohol? I think the video kind of explained it. It causes, alcohol or other drugs, it causes a release of dopamine, but some drugs cause the brain to release way too much dopamine, and you can do damage to your limbic system, the part of your brain responsible for pleasure and emotion. And so what may happen is spending time with friends and family, getting good grades, setting goals may not be as exciting and as enjoyable as the use of certain drugs, because those drugs are releasing way too much dopamine. So that drug becomes takes a higher place on their hierarchy of survival, if you will.
I'd be very curious where the scroll comes in on that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Is it like where the video game is,
Yeah.
or is it higher than that? Or?
For some, it's, between video game and food, it's higher than, for some, it's pretty high. Yeah, in case y'all didn't know, kids may spend hours scrolling, just hours. I found myself scrolling longer than I wanted to. Had no intention of being on Facebook for 30 minutes. I just want to check something real quick. And they suggest taking any social media apps off of your main screen, putting them on like the next screen or the next screen down, so you don't see it. Because if you see it, boom, you'll hit it. But if you have to kind of scroll over to get to it, for me, that's kind of helped some. It's kind of helped out some. So yeah, there is I tell you, those what do you call them? Behavior attention engineers. They're good. They're good.
So the documentary, we couldn't think of the name of it, is called The Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
Has anybody
I think I
seen
remember
it?
that. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a good
Yeah.
one.
Very
Write
good.
that down. I'll remember that. The Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's
eye-opening.
Isn't it though? And it's amazing how we've kind of got sucked into. I tried not to get a phone for the longest. I really tried not to, but it's almost like the peer pressure is like, no, you must have a phone. For my former job that I had, they made us have a phone. They gave us a phone. So, but yeah, we have to really pay attention, I think, to our social media use. Yeah, because anytime you scroll on something and you hit like, that information is stored and sold to companies so they can target you, so they can advertise to you. I was looking for shoes not too long ago. Next thing, I'm still getting ads for shoes from Johnson & Murphy and Cole Haan. I already bought a pair, but they got that information.
I think, in addition to social media, so this music, playing with their headphones on. I mean, that's the other new addiction.
Non-stop.
It's a non-stop.
Yeah.
You can't even tell
Yeah.
what they have, those tiny earbuds in there, because it's all covered. And they're kind of like doing this,
Yeah.
but God knows
You
what's
don't know
going
what
on.
they're listening to.
You have no
Yeah,
idea.
You don't know what they're listening to.
Yeah. When I see them in class, I'm sorry, do you mind taking those out for me? They usually comply. But yeah, it's become this nonstop information. I recommend students, adults as well, just unplug. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I know here you had mentioned earlier, or you did about how is COVID or how the pandemic influenced things, and I know that, obviously there's some people who have jobs who can't, not have the telephone or things like that, but I think boundaries went out the window, and so everybody had to be available at all times, and because of that, just sort of, while a lot has gone back to normal, that the trying or even, the expectation versus the resetting of that impact.
Yeah.
We are absolutely connected to each other. One of the approaches that I take is something called the social norm approach, where we want to encourage those young people that have made the decision not to use alcohol or other drugs. We want to celebrate them and encourage them, because the perception is that very frequently young people in particular overestimate the levels of use by older peers and underestimate the healthy behaviors. So, case in point, let's say there's a student in 8th grade and they're thinking about going on to high school. If that 8th grader thinks that everyone in high school drinks, that 8th grader is more likely to drink. But if that 8th grader realizes, you know what, not everyone in high school drinks, that changes the behavior. Just the perceptions can be incorrect, but perceptions can drive behavior. Every year, there's an organization called, by the National Drug Abuse, drugabuse.gov, but the National Institute of Drug Abuse, as well as the University of Michigan. They conduct a survey, and it's called Monitoring the Future. And they look at teen drug use, everything from Adderall to Xanax and everything in between. And they look at lifetime use, past year use, past 30-day use, and 2 weeks use 2 weeks prior to the survey. And they look at grades 8, 10, and 12. And they highlight the numbers every year. And I don't know if you all can see these, but this is for binge drinking and past year alcohol use. Now I use 2019 only because this was pre-pandemic. The pandemic really disrupted everything social. It changed people's social getting together and the ability to meet face-to-face and shut down parties and so on and so forth. So I use 2019 numbers. The 2020 and 2020, I think 2022 numbers are out as well, but I just want to go with 2019. But if we look at binge drinking for grade 12, and this is 2 weeks prior to the survey, it's at about 14.4%. So of those 50,000 students that were surveyed, the 12th grade group, about 14.4% said that yes, I binge drank, had 5 or more drinks or 4 or more drinks in one sitting 2 weeks prior to the survey. So if 14.4% did, how many didn't? A large majority, yeah.
And that's down from about 25%.
It's continuing. It's continuing to decline. Yeah, in 2009, it was upwards of 25%. So that idea, especially on college campuses, the idea of drinking to the point of passing out and vomiting is not cool anymore. And I will say this though, from what I'm hearing and paying it and realizing that a lot of colleges aren't really kicking kids out because of their drinking specifically, but they're kicking kids out because of the consequences of their drinking. Not being able to maintain a GPA, fights, property destruction, sexual assault, that type of thing. But not necessarily actually the drinking itself. But what's happening is a number of college campuses are doing surveys to find out, what is the drinking culture like on our campus? And they're finding that on Friday night, not everyone's at the party. And the people that are at the party, like I'll use Georgetown. They call it a social norm campaign. It was found out in, I want to say 2018, that of all the Hoyas that go to parties, they said Hoyas consume anywhere between 0 to 4 drinks at a party, between 0 and 4. So consuming shot after shot, if you're at a party and you go to Georgetown, getting drunk to the point of passing out, you'll probably be shunned. You probably won't be invited to any more parties. You'll probably be that guy who's like, okay, dude, no one does that anymore. Why are you doing that? So we want to celebrate that 85.6%. We want to celebrate that large group. We want to continue to celebrate them. And I did it today with the 8th graders. I said, listen, I had groups grades 7 and 8. I said, listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you all have made the decision not to vape for whatever reason, you are a part of the majority of students here in the U.S. And they literally broke into applause. It was like, oh, wow. I said, yeah, that's clap-worthy. Whatever you're doing, keep up the good work. Now, I'm hoping they can maintain that same energy for the next 4 or 5 years, where they realize, you know what, I don't have to drink, and I'm still cool. I still make friends. I told them personally, when I went to college, I went 4 years with no drinking. While in college, now I was in recovery when I went to college. I was in recovery, but I never walked around with a sign saying "recover or die" or a T-shirt with some weird recovery slogan. When the opportunity presented itself for me to drink, I said, no, I'm good. And eventually people stopped asking me. Why? Because I was known as, oh, Poole, no, he didn't drink. Not only did I go 4 years without drinking, I also joined a fraternity. What are fraternities known for?
I'm impressed.
What are fraternities known for?
Drinking.
Community service, right?
Brotherhood.
It's almost laughable. Yeah, but no, I'll be honest with you. In our chapter, we maintain about 30 guys per semester. And of those 30, I would say about 5% drank stereotypically heavy. And I know they smoke weed too, and they struggled academically as well. That 5%. There was another 5% of us who I would say they were moderate drinkers. Didn't really smoke weed. You never saw them passed out or vomiting. But the rest of us didn't drink at all. At all. And
That's cool.
it never got, it was cool. And you were accepted. You still had work to do, and we were very, very community service oriented. Very Big Brother program, voter registration, penny drive, coat drive, Thanksgiving baskets. We were very busy. And alcohol would just get in the way. It was just, even our parties, we would have parties, but we wouldn't be at the party. Our parties were our fundraisers, so we were working at the parties. There might have been a group that may have been consuming a bit, but it wasn't like Animal House. Y'all don't remember Animal House. Animal House was a movie back to John Belushi and them. Yeah, it was out of control. It was none of that. It was none of that. So that right here, I dispel the myth that all frat guys drink. Yeah, I tell students, listen, you can go to college and have fun, and remember it. You can go to college, have a good time, and not vomit and pass out and flunk out and get kicked out and all that other trouble that happens. Kids that are drinking really heavily in college, they're struggling academically. Yeah, a lot of them. So
Rodney, the decline in this number, I think that's pretty interesting. So I think part of that is also almost all colleges now require students to go through a very intensive education.
First year.
Drugs, sex, and all those things. So that probably is also contributing to
Yeah.
this.
Plus, a lot of those are students that I taught, so that's just, I started. No, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not, because honestly, college is a business. And so they provide a service that students pay for. So why not get your money's worth? So how can we help you get your money's worth? We're gonna educate you so that you realize that, that's a quick way to be asked to leave or to not get the full benefit of your college career by being passed out on a Friday night. But the thing is, they never go to the library with a movie camera, with TV cameras on Friday night or on Saturday night. They don't show up at the library where students might be pulling all-nighters. No, but let something happen at a fraternity house where someone gets sick and passes out and vomits or worse. Oh, cameras perched all week long. They want to continue to highlight the plane crashes opposed to the planes that take off and land safely. So yeah, that's what we hear about when we think about college drinking. And I want to encourage young people. I didn't show them these slides like this today, but I just want to encourage you all to realize that when young people do get together and drink a lot of times, this is what it kind of looks like. So we want to encourage them to realize you don't have to drink like that. Binge drinking is 5 or more drinks in one sitting for a male, 4 or more drinks in one sitting for a female. What we are seeing on some college campuses is this thing here. Anyone heard of the Borg? No? It stands for Blackout Rage Gallon. Blackout Rage Gallon. What it is, they take a gallon jug. This happened on some college campuses, not all of them, but some college campuses. University of Massachusetts at Amherst recently had a burning blowout, they call it, where a Blarney blowout around St. Patrick's Day, where these were all over the place. But not all the students were there, but they got footage. About 28 ambulances carried about 46 students to hospitals for alcohol poisoning. What it is, they take a gallon jug, they pour half of the water out, and add upwards of a fifth of vodka, some type of like Mio flavoring. They add a whole container of that, which also has high in sugar and caffeine, and some type of liquid electrolyte. And the objective, or the belief is that if you drink this, you'll be hydrated and you'll have the electrolytes in you and you won't have a hangover. It's not true. It's not true.
Refer back to the unformed brain.
There you go. There you go. 15 shots. A fifth is about 15 shots of 15 1.5 ounce shots of vodka. A fifth. So 15 to 17. So your body's going to process, if you drink a whole thing, it's going to try to process it all. And so a lot of college campuses are trying to get ahead of this thing right here and let people realize that you don't have to drink like this. This could be very dangerous drinking. It's beyond binge drinking. This becomes high intensity drinking. Actually, it's beyond high intensity drinking. We're talking about blacking out types, maybe hospital visiting type situations. Now, the one good thing that I saw about this, and it's all over social media. It got like 80 million views. 80 million views on TikTok. This is the power of social media. The one good thing that I kind of gathered from this is that you can gauge, you can put as little alcohol in your board if you want to. If you don't have the wherewithal to tell people, you know, I don't drink, you can put in no alcohol and be walking around with this thing and appear to be one of the boys or one of the girls.
Or one of the girls.
Yeah.
Most of these pictures appear to be girls.
Oh, yeah, yep. Now, these two gentlemen, these two here, online, finished a whole board, or tried to finish a whole board. Tried to finish a whole gallon, which was, like I said, a fifth of vodka and a half a gallon of water and some flavorings. And the body said no. And they tried to do it in 30 minutes. Online. There's a video out there. And the body said no. The body, you know, what happens when you drink too much? Your body will reject it. And yeah, both of them. So, yeah, I want to say it was either this one or this one were like, I don't know, they got like several million views making their board online. So, yeah, just something that's, like I said, we talk about underage drinking, college drinking in particular. When young people get together and drink, the drinking can be at dangerous levels. Now, if you've seen these around your house, definitely time for some conversations. This is called the Elf Bar. This other one, I think, is a Puff Bar back here. These are the flavored electronic cigarettes. So please pay attention to these. Have conversations with your kids about these. Very high levels of nicotine, which is super addictive, as well as the flavorings. The thing is this, if young people are getting their hands on electronic cigarettes and they're not going through a reputable dealer, they have no idea what's inside that container. They have no idea. The FDA, for some reason, decided to delay regulation of this industry. And I saw it coming. When these things started becoming popular, and I was like, okay, when's the FDA gonna step in? Okay, FDA, what's going on? For like upwards of 10 years, there were minimal amounts of regulation. And so this one company, Juul, finally got sued, and they said, okay, that's it, we're gonna start regulating this industry. But it's kind of like whack-a-mole. What has happened now is the FDA said you can't use tobacco-based nicotine for these products, for the pod-based products. So they just changed it. They got rid of the pods, and now it's a disposable. And that's how they're able to continue to use the flavors. Because Juul couldn't use, y'all heard about Juul? Okay, Juul's not cool anymore. Juul's not hot, it's not in anymore. It's all about the Puff Bar and the Elf Bar. Because Juul doesn't offer the banana ice or the strawberry or the mango melon or the blue raspberry. You can't get that in Juul anymore. So, but you can get it with the electronic cigarettes. Okay, questions?
Cake is another popular one.
Cake, yes, yep. There are thousands of flavors. Now this highlights, this video I got for you right here, this really highlights this industry, what happened. Now this is kind of like, it really talks about Juul, what Juul did, but Juul was the one that really opened the gate. They really opened the gate in this industry, and they let the toothpaste out of the tube, if you will. They got millions of kids hooked, and we're still seeing the results of it.
Juul was getting millions of kids and teens hooked on nicotine. From buying advertising on kid websites like Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network to using marketing tactics in the exact same fashion as big tobacco companies, Juul was racking in billions of dollars while igniting a public health epidemic. While Juul denies these claims, there are loads upon loads of documents that tell a completely different story. And today, I'm going to be covering every detail, including every single way Juul was getting kids to start vaping, millions of kids and teens hooked on nicotine. From buying advertising on kid websites like Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network to using marketing tactics in the exact same fashion as big tobacco companies, Juul was racking in billions of dollars while igniting a public health epidemic. While Juul denies these claims, there are loads upon loads of documents that tell a completely different story. And today, I'm going to be covering every detail, including every single way Juul was getting kids to start vaping and how they managed to spark a major health crisis among kids and teenagers alike. To understand the full story, we need to take a look at why Juul was invented in the first place, which takes us back over a decade ago to Stanford University in 2005. At the time, two students named James Monsees and Adam Bowen were becoming close friends over their cigarette breaks on campus. Both of them were graduate students in design, and during their chats, they came up with an idea for their final thesis. That idea was a design for an e-cigarette that would give smokers the nicotine they craved, but without the cancer-causing substances that came from burning tobacco. They called the device Plume. In later, in 2007, they started a company by the same name. During their early investing rounds, James and Adam gave a pitch for Plume that was straightforward and intriguing. An early investor in the company named Ralph Eschenbach recalled Plume's pitch as being pretty simple. They said they wanted to build a cigarette that would be a lot less dangerous to smokers and could be enjoyable. While the idea seemed great, James and Adam would eventually run into a huge roadblock regarding their idea. Ralph made it clear to them that FDA restrictions prevented Plume from claiming its product was safer than cigarettes. This killed their plan to market to current smokers, who were at the time mostly falling into the older demographic. Because of this, they had to scrap their marketing plans and come up with a new angle to take for selling their product. And the demographic they landed on is a perfect example of foreshadowing what was going to happen to them in the future. Young millennials. More specifically, young millennials who are occasional smokers and might be drawn to a sleek, luxury design tech product that they could carry while bar hopping. And that sleek, luxury vape design would come to fruition in 2015 when they invented the Juul. The Juul was a game changer in the e-cigarette industry. Not only did it have a cool iPhone-like design, but it had a powerful and smooth nicotine hit that no other vape had at the time. So, with the products ready to go and the demographic in mind, all James and Adam needed to do was brainstorm a way to advertise their new vape to millennials. And what they ended up doing for the next 3 years would eventually spark one of the biggest health epidemics among kids in recent history. It's hard to fathom the countless amount of shady tactics Juul used to market to millennials. Between using attractive models, bright and fun colors, and making ads in the exact same fashion as cigarette brands, it's hard to find a good place to start. So why not the beginning? It all started in 2015, when Juul hosted hundreds of launch parties for their new product. They would give out thousands of free samples at these parties, and their booths were riddled with young, attractive women working the stands. And while it's not a controversial thing to give out free samples, the future advertising endeavors Juul took on were a completely different story. Juul's first major advertising campaign was one called Vaporize. These ads displayed happy models in their young 20s dressed in trendy clothes and playfully posed. And right next to these models was the Juul device surrounded by bright and fun colors. The color scheme of these ads was questionable and closely related to cigarette ads like this one for American Spirit. On top of that, the poses these models took on were very suggestive, and once again similar to other cigarette models in the past. The Vaporize ads were distributed through many channels, and most notably on animated billboards in Times Square, a move that Camel cigarettes also pulled in the 1940s. The worst part of this campaign was that there was very little disclosure that Juul contained nicotine and was meant for smokers. The only mention of nicotine was in tiny, hard-to-read lettering at the bottom of their print ads. And even beyond the Vaporize campaign, there are still loads of examples of Juul using similar themes and messaging as major cigarette brands. Take this example between Juul and Newport showing off a great time with friends, or this one between Juul and Camel both showing off as a great way to relax. Or how about this one between Juul and Lucky showing off romantic couples using their products together. Juul also made sure to touch on holidays like Mother's Day and Valentine's Day, once again in the same exact fashion as cigarette brands had done before. Another critical point to make about Juul's advertising surrounds their colorful and fruity flavored pods. While it's obvious to say that flavors like mango and creme brulee are enticing to kids, it's also worth noting that Juul made sure to advertise their fruity flavors the most. More specifically, over 3 times more often than their non-fruity flavors. Juul also did many other sketchy things, like promoting big stars with young fans using their products, recruiting young influencers to promote their products, and even filing a patent for a vape device with a gaming mode to play games like Simon Says. Even after seeing all of this evidence, you still might be wondering what the problem even is. After all, these ads all contained adults, and all were on par with targeting young, hip, and technology-oriented millennials. So, what's the issue? And how did Juul get blamed for starting the youth vape epidemic? Well, the problem doesn't just lie in the content they made, but rather where they put that content. Most of their reach came from social media, a channel dominated by Gen Z, aka many people under 21 years old. So, most of their ads' viewership was young, non-smoking kids and teenagers. And with the bright, colorful, and playful ads they were putting out, Juul started to develop a fan base, but not the one they were targeting. Between 2015 and 2018, the number of posts about Juul was skyrocketing, but those posts were clearly coming from middle and high schoolers. Tweets between these years read such as, "Petition to make our school mascot a Juul. Horizon High School, where everyone is juuling in the bathroom. Happy 16th birthday, Lexi T. I hope your day is filled with juuling and just having the best day ever." There was even evidence arising from Juul's own employees. In 2016, some salespeople inside Juul passed around a photo taken by a colleague's teenage son of a picture of a Juul drawn on a bathroom stall at his high school. Juul employees also started to notice a meteoric rise in website orders using fake IDs. There were also orders coming in for 10 Juul starter kits at a time. Another sign to employees that Juuls were being way too late. Juul had essentially became a cultural phenomenon among kids and teens by 2018. On Instagram, #Juul had over 330,000 posts, and hundreds of new posts were being created a day. And according to analysts, out of the thousands of posts, only 5% of them were related to Juul being an alternative to smoking. While it was clear as day that Juul was garnering a massive user base of underage kids, they had no incentive to stop them. By 2018, Juul had grabbed more than 75% of the e-cigarette industry, and sales were topping $1 billion. However, at the same time, over 5 million high school and middle school students were now vaping. More specifically, 1 in 4 high school students and 1 in 10 middle school students were vaping as of November 2019. The spontaneous rise in underage kids vaping had many regulators on edge. But it wasn't until Altria, the makers of Marlboro cigarettes, acquired a 35% stake in Juul that the FDA had had enough. The FDA demanded that Juul submit documents about its marketing, research, and sales to you to better understand the product's virality with teens. But surprisingly, that wasn't the worst of it for Juul. They faced more than 8,000 lawsuits brought by individuals and families of Juul users, school districts, city governments, and Native American tribes. And it would be through these lawsuits that Juul would be exposed for everything they did. To start, Juul had purchased ad space on many youth-focused websites, including those of Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and 17 magazine. The list ran on, including sites such as basicmathematics.com, coolmath.com, and socialstudiesforkids.com. The list...
Okay, you gotta pause right there. They purchased, I don't know. As a business, I'm thinking Nickelodeon would say no to Juul. Cartoon Network, they'd be like, you know what? No, thank you.
They should have.
You would think. That's not even the worst of it, though. They really went after this demographic here.
It also included sites targeted to young girls too, such as dailydressupgames.com, gamestogirls.com, and girlgames.com.
An electronic cigarette company purchased ad space on these definitely underage, very popular sites. Homework.com? And they say we're we're targeting smokers who want to quit smoking cigarettes. No, it's very clear who you were targeting. We're gonna stop there. But yeah, Miley Cyrus, other celebrities, they wanted them to endorse their product. It's very clear that Juul in particular really, I think, started this situation. They were very good at their marketing, and their marketing was very effective, and they got a number of young people are addicted to this very day to electronic cigarettes. Some of the chemicals that have been shown to be in electronic cigarettes, real quick here, there we go. Yeah, the fruity flavors, they're the enticing ones. Hopefully y'all can see that. Now, it's not really vapor, it's more so an aerosol that is coming out of the end of the mouthpiece. It's a mixture of tiny droplets of a mixture of chemicals. Chemicals such as lead, formaldehyde, because for those, some of y'all might know, when you mix chemicals together, it creates other chemicals. And when you mix and heat chemicals, it creates even more chemicals. So there are some very harmful chemicals. The ones that show up in yellow are the ones that are on the list as being harmful or potentially harmful chemicals. And that's why I'm like, okay, where is the FDA in this situation? Finally, they decided to jump in, but it really hasn't, I don't think it's changed much at all in the chemicals that are out there. Arsenic, nickel, tin, lead, some very harmful chemicals. Our lungs are meant to inhale oxygen and exhale CO2, not to process propylene glycol and vegetable glycerin. So what happens is when a person vapes, they may experience increased heart rate, pulse, constriction of the arteries. What occurs is what's called, the students call it a head rush. What that is blood not flowing to the brain as it should. Changes in the brain in as few as one exposure, creating those neurological pathways in the brain for that experience. Very high risk of addiction as well. There have been some deaths and some lung injuries, some double lung transplants even. So it's, this whole vaping situation, it seems like it's popular, but it's not everyone. Let's switch gears real quick and talk about marijuana for the few minutes that we have left. marijuana is different now. It's much stronger than it was just 10 years ago. These are the edibles and concentrates, and these are sending people to the hospital. These are sending people to the hospital. If marijuana is legal in any state, for medical purposes, very frequently you'll see it in edibles. Not everyone's smoking the flower anymore, the plant. Now you can get what's called concentrates. These things now, well, these are, this was an ad that showed up on my Facebook feed. Legal and shipped directly to your door. I'm like, I'm in recovery for 30 years now. I don't want any weed shipped to my house. But yeah, this is where they're going. A lot of sales are online. Social media is huge for drug sales. Social media is huge for drug sales. Some of the packaging, like you mentioned, it has a flavor of Sour Patch, if you will, but it's actually marijuana. It's THC. THC is the active ingredient in marijuana, tetrahydrocannabinol. These are the concentrates. Years ago, marijuana, the plant, it had THC levels. THC is the active ingredient. It had THC levels around 18, maybe 25% for your really good weed. This is 98% THC. 99%, 97%, 99%. I mean, this is what people are inhaling and ending up at the hospital for THC toxicity. It's causing people to overdose. Now, not necessarily die, but get to the point where their body struggles to process it. Anxiety issues, psychotic episodes in some cases. It's nothing to play with. This is how people are vaping it, are consuming it. These are called the concentrates, where they just literally heat them up. They put fire to them and inhale the smoke. Extremely high levels of THC. Yep, the packaging, very young looking. This is an actual Sour Patch Kid. This is actually candy, and this is the THC gummies. Looks very similar. Notice the colors, the color scheme, if you will. This is called Stoner Patch Dummies, not gummies. These are Stoner Patch Dummies. Chronic Toast Crunch, Fruity Loopies. Now you can, in some of those states where marijuana is legal recreationally, you can literally go to a cooking class and all the food is cooked with THC. Yeah.
Something else you should know is that it is really hard to decipher between the black market products and the registered products.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, you really have to know what you're looking for to be able to identify the difference. And they look almost identical.
Mm-hmm. The packaging can be purchased. There's one street in California, I want to say it's in LA, where you can literally purchase these packages, and you can make your own product. You can make your own gummies. You can make your own brownies. You can make your own cartridges, and you can buy the empty cartridges and add the liquid, the THC infused liquid, and sell it online. So if kids are getting their stuff online, they're not getting it from a dispensary, there's a really good chance they may be inhaling some harmful chemicals. Now, the good thing is, well, I guess it's good, not everyone's using marijuana. Not all teenagers are using marijuana. When it came to 2019, daily marijuana use amongst high school seniors was about 6.4%. So that meant upwards of 95% were not using marijuana every day. But those that had used in the past year was around 35.7%. So once again, it's not everyone, but definitely something to be concerned about. Definitely worth conversations. So what happens? You'll see changes in academics. You may see changes in overall behavior. If you find out that your son or daughter struggles to quit, you've talked to them about quitting, and they've agreed, they try, get them some help. Don't just, you can't discipline addiction away. That young person may need a professional evaluation. They may need maybe even an inpatient or outpatient rehab. Get them some help. Personality shifts, you'll notice changes, they'll maybe start quitting things. Their hierarchy of survival becomes, it changes. And sleep may not, or hanging out with friends may not be important to them as much as it was. Noticing, like, having any drug paraphernalia on clothing, marijuana leaf on a shirt is a very clear indication that there's something going on there. That's not, that's not typical. They're sending a message about marijuana in particular. Busting them in a lie, catching them with excuses about things. Just overall changes of behavior are definitely worth paying attention to. Now, this is what students have told me. I make lists of students when I ask them, what should I tell your parents? Okay, Now this is coming from a student. Having conversations with me about the risk of alcohol. Kids want to talk about it, they want to hear about it from you. Yep, they want to hear about it, and not a lecture, but have conversations. It's recommended early and often. Just a 1 minute lecture, a 1 minute discussion about marijuana is much more beneficial than a 30-minute, accusatory session or a lecture. Don't lecture. Kids said, set a good example. Talk about real life situations. You can just go pick up the newspaper and you can get all sorts of information. Do not serve me alcohol or other drugs. Kids have said that. Don't serve me. I love it. I was like, wow. Kids don't want their parents serving them. Some kids do, but I bet most kids, it puts a lot of pressure on a kid. I really believe that. Try not to lose your temper. You may not actually understand what I'm going through. Kids are going through some very serious situations. You can just ask any counselor. Kids are going through some tough situations, especially now post-COVID. Some of them haven't even dealt with what happened, during COVID. Be patient, understanding. Ask me what I want to do, and let's do that. Just you and I. I love that. Ask me what I want to do, and then let's do that. Just you and I. Not little brother. Just you and I. Ask me who, what, where, and when. Yep. Kids need parameters. Kids need an out to say, I can't do that because my mom, she told me I can't, so I can't. In some cases, it's much easier to say, blame it on mom, than for them to say, I really don't want to do that. If you freak out when I tell you stuff, I will stop telling you stuff. So don't freak out. Kind of just take a pause, take a deep breath, and think about what they just told you. Teach me about relationships. Where are kids going to learn about relationships other than from you? Who do you want your kids to learn about relationships from? Social media? Okay, other things parents can do. Set boundaries. Set clear boundaries. That's how life is. There are laws in place. There are rules in place. There are boundaries that if we cross those boundaries, it could be devastating. If I go out of here and just because I'm in a hurry, I start running red lights, I might make a few, but that one is going to be the one that might change everything for not just me, but for a bunch of other people as well. So we have to have very clear boundaries. Establish clear and consistent consequences. There's a big difference between telling a kid, I want you to make good decisions and I need you home at 9:30. See the difference? One's very clear. 9:30 is 9:30, not 9:42, not 9:55. 9:30 is 9:30. Talk early and often, support healthy activities, and connect with other parents. Here's a group right here, you can connect with it. You may not know each other, but exchange email addresses, just because. You never know where another parent may be helpful. Model healthy behavior surrounding alcohol and social media. Be present. Sometimes we got to turn the phones off. Not just put them on the table upside down, but turn them off and have a conversation. Kids, I think, have missed that. This has taken the place of a face-to-face conversation and those social cues that occur during a conversation. Looking someone in their eyes. It's a beautiful thing when I see a young person able, like at a restaurant or something, or a young waiter or something that actually is able to have a conversation or able to actually serve or do their job without that weird behavior that I think comes from lack of experience with those social cues. Limit nighttime social media use. Kids need sleep. That screen they're looking at hinders their melatonin from increasing. Melatonin helps us go to sleep. And if they're looking at that light, that screen, their melatonin levels up here, instead of putting the screen down, their melatonin levels down here. They need the melatonin level to rise, to increase, so that they get tired and go to sleep. It's recommended they have a kind of a ritual. I've heard experts say no cell phones in rooms. Yeah. Why? Because they'll be on the thing all night in some cases. While you're sleeping, they're on the phone. Kids need sleep. They go to sleep at 3 in the morning, and now they got to get up at 6. And you wonder why they can't get up. So this is just a suggestion. Encourage real-life social experiences and physical activity. Get outside, go with them, go for walks, go hiking, go fishing, go hunting, play golf, get outside and do the actual outdoor activities. And leave the phones in the clubhouse or in the car. Assist with building self-esteem and self-worth. Help them build that. Provide support, be ready to intervene on unhealthy attitudes. If you have a hunch something's going on, find out about it, have a conversation about it. Actively express family expectations and consequences. Know what's going on, current trends. If you can, listen to some of their music. Ask them, let me see that earbud that you really want, you're listening to all the time. Let me hear what's on your playlist. Let's hear. Might get some cool points, but you also might find out what messages they're receiving as entertainment. Pay attention during difficult situations. They have certain points in young people's lives where they're transitioning from middle school to upper school, from not driving to driving. Those can be very stressful times. During relationships, from a relationship that didn't quite work out and they parted ways, that can be a really stressful situation. So be there for them to deal with those situations. Okay, research has shown that students that perceive their parents disapprove of their substance use are less likely to use, as well as students that perceive that their parents are involved in their day-to-day activities are less likely to use. Yep, you gotta ask questions. Who, what, when, why, where, and what time will you be home? All student use equals risk. Delayed use prevents later problems. The majority of students are making healthy decisions, and adult role modeling and expectations are vital to healthy prevention. Some suggestions: I really like the Truth Initiative, as huge, a ton of information about electronic cigarettes and vaping. Drugfree.org I found is very user-friendly. Some really good suggestions there when it comes to parenting as well. NIDA's kind of PhD level, but there's a lot of good statistics there, a lot of up-to-date current research, and Above the Influence. I think it's very user-friendly as well. Okay, in the few minutes we have left, questions. What questions might y'all have?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
No, please, happy.
Well, I was just gonna say, you didn't even touch on fentanyl.
Yeah, statistically, the likelihood of your kid coming into contact with fentanyl in comparison to alcohol, vaping, marijuana. Now, I did tell students that we talked about the fact that the drug supply in the U.S. is poison. It's tainted.
Yeah.
Fentanyl is horrible. It's a horrible drug, and it's showing up in places where it shouldn't be. So that's another risk of a young person buying drugs from some guy.
Well, that's what made me think of it.
Mm-hmm.
I learned from a friend who goes to another independent school away from here. She kind of sent a video of something, some prevention thing that they had access to, and we watched it with our kids, and it was particularly on fentanyl, and one of the hugest things they talked about was just, you have no idea what you're getting.
Yeah, especially the cartridges. Those THC cartridges that young people are buying online, a drug dealer, it may be cross-contaminated with fentanyl. So, they're being found. The cartels are flooding our country with fentanyl in particular, with counterfeit pills that have fentanyl in them. The goal is, now in drug circles, addicts want the really strong stuff, the stuff that's gonna take them to the brink of death, if you will. And so this is what drug dealers are selling. So that counterfeit pill might have fentanyl in it, but it might have enough to kill a person. It doesn't take much, about enough to put on the head of a pin could kill a person. Like the size of a grain of salt is enough to kill a person. So I highly recommend it as parents, have conversations with your kids about illegal drugs in general. I just have time today to cover it.
And I get that, and
students.
I guess I would probably agree with your comment about, like, statistically speaking, right, less likely, less access, stuff like that, but like, I feel like it was pretty important. I think we watched it right before our kids went on their senior trip,
Great idea.
Our two middle ones, and it's the kind of thing they need to know.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's scary. I'm so glad I stopped using drugs years ago. I'm so glad. Yeah. You got a question?
I think all these drugs, they've been there for a long time in different shapes and forms. I think, in my mind, I think the ease of access is really what's driving the business model, and unrestricted access to social media is what's really killing people. So, if you can regulate that part, you can regulate quite a bit.
Yeah.
vigilant in terms of their access to social media, just because you know, privacy, or mom, you're looking at my stuff, and you know, who are you kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's really important.
Yeah, yeah, and drug sales are happening online,
Online.
on social media. They call them plugs. There's, I'll send you some stuff on social media what's happening with that whole, where a young person can literally go to Snapchat, or not Snapchat, and I want to say TikTok as well, and they can connect with someone that sells drugs. And if they're in the area, they will deliver it. They'll drop it off at the house. It's scary. You're talking about some sketchy dude coming to your house, knowing to meet with your son or daughter because they have money. So.
Telegram's another one.
Telegram as well. Yeah, yeah.
And those were all ones that I learned of from students who had it on their phones.
Yeah.
Never
Not
heard
at
of
this
that one.
school, but at my previous school.
Right, yeah.
And had purchased from these places.
Yeah, yeah.
Ryan, what do you think the drug culture is in the high school right now? That wasn't the word I wanted, but it's the first one that came out.
I definitely think there's kids who are curious about it. So, you know, we talked about access. The other thing is this, there's a belief that I've seen amongst kids and adults that it's less harmful. So you have ease of access and a belief that it's not gonna hurt me.
What's that, the vaping?
Any vaping, yeah. So, I mean, I know adults in their 30s and 40s who choose to vape because, oh, well, it's not as bad. I can keep doing this because this isn't gonna hurt me. And so, even adults are under the impression that it's not harmful. So when you have that ease of access and the idea that it's not gonna hurt you, it opens the door for a kid to say, yeah, sure, I'll give it a try. And then they taste it and they like it.
Cotton candy?
It's, as I was saying earlier, you know, it's a short step that one has to make to go from not trying to trying when those are the factors in play.
I would love nothing more than for my kid to come place, and this isn't a wrap here, this is a general comment. I think the cell phones have destroyed the kids. Destroyed.
100%.
You know, we are constantly battling with these issues. If you take the cell phone, they get one from their pal, or they
There's
go
a
buy
right
a
at
jack
home,
phone.
or there's rights at home, if you take the phones away.
You know,
You're
it impairs their ability to have a conversation. You know, it's a hiding place. You know, all the social skills, you touched on it. I mean, it is nerve wracking for us. And to me, you know, our child is 16, and the difference between him and we have a 25-year-old, it's 9 years. It's phenomenal. Just the short amount of time that this has happened. I would love for you to take selfies.
Oh my gosh.
On the same,
Me too.
you know, on the same, so.
Take the phones from them.
So in my, you know, previously, where my kids were in Pulaski Academy at UMS, in Little Rock, there were no cell phones. I mean, this was a private school, very much like prep, but you walk in, your cell phone stays in the locker. You can bring it, but it cannot come to the classroom. It cannot be in the hallways. There was no cell phone, and again, this was a very high-end school. So again, I think, you know, I would be very supportive
How
of
recently?
something.
How recently was that?
Oh, like 2 years back. I mean, we just.
Well, I would submit though that we can't expect more of our institutions than we're willing to stand by at home. So if we're unwilling to say, the phone doesn't go into your bedroom, unless we're willing to say that, I can't ask anybody else to do that.
You know, we've done that, actually. We have done that.
We sneak, the phones need to be in our bedroom,
Yeah.
but middle of the night, phone is gone sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, then-
So, yeah, I mean, you know, so we have a rule at home, no screens in your room.
I found 2 or 3 other ones under his bed.
Yeah, so no, and
Easy to get
it's,
replacement.
there's a
You
sort
You
of
can
code,
get them anywhere.
yeah, so again,
And
you know,
they're cheap.
it's just one of those
It
things
is,
where.
it's an ongoing struggle. You know,
Yes.
and
But
we
we-
think we are very strict parents, but these kids are way ahead of us.
They're upgraded, but we
See,
can't
the
not,
phones are what's making all this stuff look
So
good and
true,
cool.
yeah,
And
we
that's
can't
why
not,
they're,
we can't not stop though.
Yeah.
We've got, when we find two, throw them away.
I think the school culture also plays quite a big role. So, you know, if the school says, if the teachers say, hey, no phones, then I think the message gets across a lot louder than when I say.
Yeah, because they don't listen.
They
as
don't
much
listen.
as-
I mean, I don't count anyway,
Well,
so I think that's really
And you
important.
should know, like, in classrooms, the only time a kid here should be using a phone is if the teacher's doing some activity that requires the device to get them to that,
Yeah.
right?
But the bottom line is,
But,
anyone who has an Apple computer has their laptop open, taking notes, and they're basically on their phone.
they
Yeah.
can be on their phone.
You know, so-
Yeah.
It's everywhere,
I mean-
even on their laptops.
And
yeah.
then on top of that too, we can do everything we want to remove the phone and the access, but we also have to educate them on how to use it, because if you don't, I mean, all we're
Because
doing
you're
is.
teaching them the responsibility, right?
Yeah, they
learn.
get to the next level and they don't know
Yeah.
how to handle it, now the consequences, well, their job, their boss is telling them, listen, you're on your phone too much. You wanna keep working here. you
Or
gotta
your
But-
college education, right?
Yeah.
You're on your phone
find
and,
out your
yeah.
kid's on that.
They are addicted.
Yeah, you know, the teachers could
They
bring
can't-
it up.
They can't walk from here to
I
there.
mean, I get
without-
emails frequently with a notification from a teacher to a student where I'm CC'd on it saying, you are not allowed to be on your phone in class. You are on your phone, you now have a consequence for that.
Mhm.
So I get those emails all the time.
Right.
So the teachers are, but then again, you know, if there's an instance where, you know, a kid's hair is covering, and they've got the foot, they don't have to have it out to be using it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of ways, and our kids,
They're so smart.
our kids are not dummies, they're
They're
savvy.
resourceful.
They're savages.
Is there a historical precedent, is there
They have to do that.
anything in our history quite like that, quite like this? That's, you know, when you think of anything that,
I can't. This is a whole new, situation. And this is a group of young people that literally do not remember not having a cell phone. We
Right.
grew up
Yeah.
without one.
Yeah,
And-
no.
And I think we turned out pretty okay. But no, this is a whole new territory here. And I think, like you said, it's important for them, there's some benefits to their use. But I will say this though, I didn't see one cell phone in any of my class today, not one. None of them brought them in, I didn't see any of them without. If they did have them, they didn't have them out. And then we were focused the entire time today. And I applaud that, I just thought about that. I also gotta say this, Ryan, your name came up, and I polled the school, the entire student body, about, as every school that I go to, I asked them, you know, is your school a resource for support for when it comes to vaping in particular, and or possibly other issues? And I'll say it, I don't care. They said whoever it was before you, they said probably not. I want to say this is 10th graders, and one girl said, but Mr. Ryan, yeah, we'd probably go to him. So just put that out there. Just put that out there. It appears, yeah, and we'll talk more about that. But yeah, that's it. Your kids are in a good place. Your kids are in a good place, and I can gauge. So I go to a bunch of different schools, and I ask those same questions. Would you reach out to your school for support with like vaping in particular, or other issues? And I get it over and over. In some cases, they don't even know who the counselors are. In some cases, but your kids are in good hands. For the
You
sake of
should know.
time, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, you should know too, and, if I receive a call from a parent that says, hey, I'm concerned about my child and involvement in this, we're not in a discipline matter at that point. We're in a support place. I now become your best ally in trying to help you support your kid in finding ways to curb that behavior. It is not a discipline matter at that point. And a lot of times, parents will be afraid to reach out because they don't want to be tipping a hat to say, hey, look out for my kid, because, you know, you need to watch my kid like a hawk now because X, Y, or Z. And I think a lot of times parents will be afraid to reach out, but, you know, my experience with that, every time I've had a parent reach out to me or to the school in my career with something like that, the outcome was always way better than when they don't.
Yeah, for the sake of time, we're actually over, and so I want to I can talk about this stuff all night, but just think about, as we part, maybe kids that you may have known where the parents were like less strict, like the kids who pretty much, their parents let them do pretty much whatever they wanted to do, and how that worked out. Compared to, I mean, I think, I'm, even though I made some mistakes, I'm glad my parents had some boundaries in place. Now as an adult, I realize why they told me, you know, we want you home by a certain time, and no, you can't use the car this weekend. As I looked as an adult, but at the time, I didn't like that. I didn't like the discipline. I didn't like the rules. I didn't like the consequences. But I understand there was in comparison to those other houses where I know the parents were kind of like whatever. Kids were like, my mom doesn't care. Yeah. So it's a tough job. It's a tough job. But I think you guys are up to it. I think you guys are up for it. Yeah, yeah. I want to encourage you to reach out to me. Either go through Ryan or you can reach me specifically. I'm on LinkedIn, Rodney Poole. Just check me out. Follow me. I'm always posting new information about alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, and suggestions for parents. Anything that comes out new, I usually put it out there. Stuff that's research-based, not entertainment, but more so research-based stuff. So thank you all so much for coming out tonight. Y'all take care and get home safe.
Thank you.